Assalamu'alaikum Warahmatullahi Wabarakatuh. Hello and good morning. The truth is our priority. We give justice to your curiosity. The latest news spotted only here on Matahari News, giving you the latest and most credible news for today. So, for today's news is about more than 1 in 5 worldwide suffering from violence at work. Violence and harassment at work is difficult to measure. The report found that only half of victims worldwide had disclosed their experiences to another person, and often only after they had suffered repeated incidents. The most common reasons given for non-disclosure were that it was seen as a waste of time, leaving people who have been abused fearing for their reputation. Women were more likely to share their experiences than men, 60.7% compared to 50.1%. Globally, 17.9% of employed men and women said they had experienced psychological violence and harassment at some point in their working life, and 8.5% had faced physical violence and harassment. More men than women report having experienced this. Of those responding, 6.3% reported facing sexual violence and harassment, with women being particularly exposed, said the UN Labor Agency. Young people, migrant workers, and salaried women and men have been the most exposed to violence according to the data. Young women were twice as likely as young men to have faced sexual violence and harassment, while migrant women were almost twice as likely as non-migrants to report sexual violence and harassment. More than 3 out of 5 victims said they had experienced violence and harassment multiple times. And for the majority, the most recent incident took place within the past 5 years. It's painful to learn that people face violence and harassment not just once but multiple times in their working lives, said Manuela Tomei, ILO Assistant Director General for Governance, Rights and Dialogue. Psychological violence and harassment is the most prevalent across countries, and women are particularly exposed to sexual violence and harassment. The report tells us about the enormity of task ahead to end violence and harassment in the world of work. I hope it will expedite action on the ground and towards the ratification and implementation of ILO Convention 190, ILO's Violence and Harassment Convention 2019 or 190, and Recommendation number 206 are the first international labor standards to provide a common framework to prevent, remedy, and eliminate violence and harassment in the world of work, including gender-based violence and harassment. The convention includes the specific recognition for the first time in international law of the right of everyone to a world of work free from violence and harassment, and outlines obligations of signatories towards this end. Gathering robust data on this highly sensitive issue is challenging but essential. For the first time, this report lifts the veil on this pervasive problem which plagues more than 1 in 5 workers globally, said Andrew Zepa, a partner at Gallup. For too long, companies and organizations have been unaware or unwilling to tackle violence and harassment in the workplace, he added. This dataset provides a baseline that we can all use to track much needed progress on this vital safety issue. Sarah Cumbers, Director of Evidence and Insight at Lloyd's Register Foundation, said that to tackle global safety challenges as difficult and deep-rooted as violence and harassment at work, it is critical to have good data to understand the extent of the problem and to identify those most at risk, especially in places where little reliable data may have existed previously. We are very glad to have been able to work with Gallup and the ILO to make this landmark contribution, revealing these data gaps as part of our world risk poll, and to provide a benchmark for countries to make improvements, driven by the vitally important ratification of Convention 190. Sarah added. Okay, you have just heard the latest news around the globe. Again, this is Matahari News, news with no bias, news with no exception, delivering nothing but the truth. This has been Indri Julianti, bringing you the latest news around the globe. Thank you for being with me. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.